Mr. Speaker, with your permission, of course, I rise, on your command, I would say, to introduce and have read for the first time the Appropriation 2014 Bill 2013.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to second the motion.
Question is that the bill shortly entitled Appropriation 2014 Bill 2013 be read a first time. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to provide for the services of St. Christopher and Nevis for the financial year commencing 1st January 2014 and ended on 31st December 2014.
The bill shortly entitled the Appropriation 2014 Bill 2013 has been read a first time.
Bill's second reading.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave again to move the second reading of the bill shortly entitled the Appropriation Act 2014-2013. And I want to begin, Mr. Speaker, by emphasizing that the future of St. Kitts and Nevis is bright. Our diligence and our hard work, they are now yielding fruits with a notable turnaround in the growth and development prospects for our country. After 4 years of negative growth in 2013, we will record a positive GDP growth around 2%, signaling that we have weathered the storm and we are now bouncing back from the adverse impact of the global recession. It cannot keep us down. I urge this honorable House and indeed the nation to celebrate this marvelous feat. You can clap, but don't clap. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, for us, we are also confident, fully confident that we are on a path to sustaining positive growth over the medium term. We are all aware that over the last few years, the government has led this nation through a period of adjustment and reform, recalibrating the economic framework into one that is now better suited to support economic growth and development, social cohesion, and environmental sustainability. We are moving towards the completion of the fiscal adjustment period and now must clearly address the need to chart a course of sustainable economic growth for our small Twin Island Federation. Our future is in our own hands, and we can develop our own solutions to our unique set of challenges. Some 8 years ago, Mr. Speaker, we made the decision to cease the production of sugar for export. Since then, this administration has moved on to facilitate the rapid development of our tourism industry and the services sector in general. Using our experience over the last decade, I think we have arrived at a point in our journey where we must now refine and upgrade the model that we want to adopt for the future development of our proud nation. Today, I submit that we should set our sights high and we should seek to create a new model, one that works for us and one that is unique to us as a small island developing state. This new model should harmonize our social, cultural, environmental, and economic responsibilities and make the most of our competitive advantage and our collective will to succeed. Mr. Speaker, you note for the first time the budget is being signed. The young lady sitting there is doing exactly that. But in order to create a sustainable economy for St. Kitts and Nevis, we must consider the following economic realities. Today, as we know it, the Federation is surrounded by large but distant overseas markets. However, our local market is small, so there are few alternatives to traditional commodity export-oriented growth. History has shown that extreme protectionism, it just will not work. Secondly, because of the size of our federation and limited physical resources, there is little alternative but to export services, such as tourism and financial services, or to produce high-value items for export, as it is difficult for us to compete with the manufacturing capacity of the Far East. Thirdly, our existing capital structures, they are not suited to encouraging entrepreneurship and micro-enterprise, but best serve existing established businesses. Lastly, tourism has become a large component of our economy and is particularly sensitive to environmental degradation and social issues such as crime and violence. Mr. Speaker, a real opportunity exists for us to create a new economy by making the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis one of the world's finest sustainable island states. It is no accident that my government has chosen to present this budget under the theme, A Green Economy, the pathway towards a sustainable island state. And this is the vision that we presented to our social and economic partners just recently at our annual national consultation on the economy. This is our clear vision for the future of our beloved country. This vision was very well received at the national consultation and therefore presented in this budget in keeping with our quest to ensure that key policies are informed by such consultations. And so I invite all citizens and residents to share in this vision, because I truly believe that we can indeed achieve the status and maintain the status of a thriving, sustainable island state fueled by a green economy. This vision of a sustainable island state should be founded on certain core values. Balance is a central part of the vision, where we acknowledge that truly sustainable development requires the harmonization of people, heritage, environment, and prosperity. We must have a clear sense of our identity, recognizing that it is necessary for our people to continually develop a sense of self. We must also come to the understanding that culture and the environment have a central role to play in our development. The movement to a sustainable island state will require active management of our resources and assets. We, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, must begin to see ourselves not only as beneficiaries or mere spectators, but rather as the primary resource that is required for the process to succeed. We must endeavor to maintain our independence, and this will require us to truly value and understand the importance of resource independence in water, in food, and in energy. We must adopt a zero tolerance for exclusion of any group among us. Every segment of our society must be equitably involved and fully incentivized throughout the process of building a sustainable island state. Mr. Speaker, the binding principle for this process is leadership. This government is ready. This government is willing. This government is equipped to lead this particular process. However, visionary leadership and governance is not the responsibility of the public sector alone. Leadership in the private and civil society sectors is also essential, as this will determine the Federation's success in rising to this particular opportunity. St. Kitts and Nevis has unique advantages in its aspirations to develop a green economy and a sustainable island state. This opportunity lies in the small size of our population, who are educated and who are patriotic. The physical environment of both islands is well preserved. Our land mass covers a manageable 104 square miles, with only 2 islands to administer. The islands have good potential for the development of renewable energy in the form of solar, geothermal, and wind. St. Kitts-Nevis is emerging as a premium tourism destination and is increasingly establishing brand awareness in major markets around the world. Our National Assembly has the ability to rapidly develop enabling legislation that can attract targeted businesses and industries. We have already established a sustainable and a substantial framework in sustainability planning, as evidenced by the existing National Physical Development Plan, modern building codes, the National Adaptation Strategy, and the establishment of the Ministry of Sustainable Development, which my government created back in 2009. In our quest, Mr. Speaker, to become a sustainable island state, we intend to continue the consultative process started at the national consultation. We believe that we must engage our people in a dialogue and build a national consensus. The people of the Federation, they must be involved at every step of this process, and they must have ownership. This vision cannot be achieved without support and commitment at all levels, from both administrations of the federal government and the Nevis Island administration, from all government ministries, from the private sector, from civil society, and of course, our individual citizens. We will create and market a national brand for St. Kitts and Nevis as one of the world's first sustainable island states. And this can be done on the world stage with the help of early adopters and include a global public relations campaign. Very importantly, a national campaign will be mounted to ensure maximum participation of our local stakeholders. We must then develop activities that would enable our current economy to transition to a zero-carbon economy, and then to a sustainable one. We must support the exploration and development of geothermal reserves, solar and wind energy on both St. Kitts and Nevis. We must develop businesses and social practices that encourage the sustainable use of the natural resource base of our federation. The tourism sector, it needs to develop a roadmap for bringing its tourism plant in line with the requirements of a sustainable island state. The Federation has already begun to address food independence by seeking to substitute some imported food with locally produced food. My government has commenced this initiative with the launch of the Capacity Farm, the allocation of lands dedicated to farming, and the development of water services to the agricultural sector. We must move to converting fossil fuel vehicles to electric and biofuel-powered vehicles, becoming more open to use of bicycles and develop appropriate infrastructure. We must reduce the energy consumption of buildings in our homes and also in public spaces. Our practices in waste management must be altered, and we must ensure its protection of the nation's air, land, and marine resources. Our aspirations to make St. Kitts and Nevis one of the world's first sustainable island states can only be achieved if the daily actions of our people are aligned with the best of a green economy. This will require formal education. It will require skills training and awareness programs. We must develop a national consciousness, a commitment, a culture, and the skills that are necessary for a successful transition to this new economy. Many are seeking jobs and business opportunities, and that is precisely what we intend to create. The development of St. Kitts and Nevis as a sustainable island state will generate a new economy based on responsible tourism, information and communication technology, financial services, the alternative use of sugar lands, and specialist exports. This important initiative not only holds the prospect for preserving our resources for future generations, but will foster growth and development and bring down the cost of energy consumed by our people. And so today, on behalf of my government, I call upon the leaders of the private sector, the leaders of civil society, to join us in forming a steering committee that will take the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis forward on the path to become a sustainable island state. Mr. Speaker, it is important for me to place our current situation in the context of the rest of the world. And so permit me for a few moments to look at recent developments in the international and regional economy. Mr. Speaker, there has been some improvement in the global financial conditions, and short-term risks have been reduced. However, the global economy continues to expand at a subdued pace. The actions, and in some instances, inaction of decision makers, have caused medium-term risks to emerge, including adverse effects on financial stability as a result of unconventional monetary measures in developed economies. The International Monetary Fund, in the last edition of the World Economic Outlook, reported that the advanced economies are gradually strengthening, while those of the emerging markets have slowed. Employment remains a major challenge in many advanced and some emerging economies, as global output continues to expand below what is required to facilitate job creation. Unemployment is more severe among the weak economies in the periphery states of the euro area, as economic activity records severe contractions accompanied by stringent austerity measures. However, in recent months, new downside risks have come to the fore, as evidenced by the partial shutdown of the United States federal government and the protracted negotiation process regarding the increase of the debt ceiling. The decisions taken have not resolved these critical issues, and the sustainability of the recovery through increased consumer and business confidence, it remains quite tenuous. Notwithstanding, we observe with interest the very positive employment report released by the U.S. government just last week. The reduction in the rate of unemployment in that country was recorded at 7%. It is the lowest level since November of 2008, when the housing crisis did hit the United States. This is certainly good news for our local economy as well. Mr. Speaker, careful attention is still needed for devising the appropriate policy mix that is necessary for improving the pace of adjustment. And this can positively impact the recovery of global economic output, which is projected to expand by 3.6% in 2014, an improvement when compared to the projected outturn of 2.9% in 2013. The emerging market economies, they have experienced a sharper than expected slowdown in economic output. And this decline, Mr. Speaker, is reflective of both cyclical factors and the decrease in potential output growth. Two of the fastest growing economies, China and India, they have taken a proverbial economic tumble from double to single-digit rates of growth. In 2013, economic activity in China is projected to moderate at 7.6% when compared to 7.7% in 2012, while output in India is estimated to expand by 3.8% in 2013 compared to the 3.2% in 2012. Looking at Brazil, growth is expected to improve, recording an outturn of 2.5% in 2013 after growing by a mere 0.9% in 2012. Notwithstanding the reduction of economic activity, this group continues to account for the largest share of global growth. Some decrease in growth compared to what it has been in previous years was anticipated. However, structural reforms, such as the rebalancing toward domestic consumption in China and removal of barriers to investment in Brazil and India will make this period of adjustment much more manageable. The advanced economies are projected to expand by 1.2%, Mr. Speaker, in 2013, after recording a growth rate of 1.5% in 2012. The economic recovery within our two main trading partners, the United States and the United Kingdom, is hinged on the implementation of sustainable policy reforms. The uncertainty of the nature and strength of fiscal adjustment in the United States economy, ongoing conflicts surrounding the raising of the debt ceiling, and the failed attempts at fiscal consolidation, all these continue to threaten the recovery, resulting in a projected growth rate of only 1.6% in 2013, which is a noticeable slowdown in economic growth compared to the 2.8% that we saw in 2012. The economy in the United Kingdom, it has shown signs of improvement consistent with increasing consumer and business confidence, with real output projected to expand by 1.4% in 2013 after a dismal show of 0.2% in 2012. However, it is important to note, to emphasize, that this outturn remains well below pre-crisis levels and does not provide the environment to facilitate job creation. Looking at Japan, output is projected to expand by 2% in 2013, remaining flat when compared to 2012. The new policy actions coined Abenomics, hold promise to facilitate a recovery, but also have a degree of risk that is evidenced by the devaluation of the yen. The euro area will remain in recession, with economic output expected to contract by 0.4% in 2013 as a result of uncertainties in the major advanced economies and because of delays in policy implementation in several key areas. Continued delays combined with a kick-the-can approach to decision-making will result in new policy challenges and spillovers that may pose even greater concerns going forward in regard to the strength of economic recovery and the thrust of national development. The United Nations, in the Sustainable Development Action Plan, entitled Agenda 21, it articulated that there is need for the global economy to be dynamic and stable, as uncertainty would impede the development process. The path to sustainable development, particularly among developing countries, would also be impeded by high external debt, inadequate financing, barriers to markets, and unfavorable prices of commodities and terms of trade. In 2012, Mr. Speaker, over 190 nations, including St. Kitts-Nevis, were represented at the Rio +20 Earth Summit, where endorsement was given to the steps required to achieve sustainable communities. And among the identified actions was the launching of a process to establish sustainable development goals, which include an outline on the means by which the green economy can be used as a tool to achieve sustainable development and advance in the movement beyond the use of gross domestic product as the sole means of assessing the well-being of a country. And so it is evident that there is increasing consensus that we cannot achieve sustainable or sustained economic growth and development at the expense of the natural environment. The environment must therefore feature as an important element in our plans to improve the standard of living for our people and ensure future prosperity. Permit me now, Mr. Speaker, to look very, very quickly at the regional economic developments. And, Mr. Speaker, I emphasize that the island states of the Caribbean region, they have continued to take proactive steps to secure our economic and financial viability during the global economic downturn and protracted recovery period. The development trajectory of our small nations is catalyzed by the expectations of our people and the global community that the amenities provided in this region should be equal to or surpass what is provided in the developed world. And so in this regard, the region has been successful in achieving a quality of life which is of high standard, as evidenced by the United Nations Human Development Indices, which record achievements ranging from the medium to the highest categories. The challenge going forward will be to develop the capacity to build resilience in light of our size, in terms of our land mass and population, in spite of the vulnerabilities to external shocks and natural disasters, and the cultural dispositions that impede our development. There will therefore be a need for the building of technical expertise, Mr. Speaker. Expertise, of course, and management and administrative competence, and a commitment from all spheres of society to transform how we do business and interact in our individual capacities. This will require the integration of new methodologies and technologies across all sectors, combined with the conservation of natural assets, investment in infrastructural resilience, and increased private sector-led development. The economies of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, they contracted for the fourth consecutive year in 2012, with a growth rate of minus 0.2%, albeit at a slow pace when compared to the average downturn of 2.9% for the period 2009 to 2011. This outturn can be attributed to a sluggish but positive rate of growth in tourism sector of 1.4%, and the further slowing of the contraction of the construction sector to minus 4.3% after an average decline of 13.9% over the last 3 years. Preliminary data for the period January to June 2013 has indicated that economic output within the OECS expanded by 1.1% due to expansions in agriculture, in construction, in tourism, in transport, in storage and communications, in financial intermediation, in real estate, and public administration. And during this period, Mr. Speaker, St. Kitts and Nevis recorded positive growth of 2% due to expansions in the construction, tourism, and wholesale and retail sectors. St. Kitts and Nevis is doing better than the average rest of the currency union. Mr. Speaker, in 2012, the larger Caribbean community continued to traverse a challenging economic period as the recovery process remained fragile when compared to 2011. Barbados, it recorded a flat rate of growth when compared to a positive rate of growth of 0.8% in 2011 as a result of declines in tourism, other tradable services, and manufacturing sectors. The economy of Jamaica, what of it? It contracted, recording a real growth rate of minus 0.5% in 2012, following an expansion in economic output of 1.4% back in 2011. This outturn was due to declines in the mining and quarrying, construction, and transport, storage, and communication sectors. However, the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, it recorded an increase in output of 0.2% after a contraction of 2.6% in 2011 as a result of positive growth in the non-energy sector, particularly the finance and distribution sectors. It is vital, Mr. Speaker, that as we go forward, that the Caribbean, particularly the members of the Eastern Caribbean Council Union, that they take the necessary steps to transform our structural features, our vulnerabilities, and cultural characteristics from hindrances into building blocks. And this would enable us to create a new business environment, one that could enhance competitiveness and will redound to sustain growth and development. To advance this process, 12 Caribbean states, including St. Kitts and Nevis, we participated in the Caribbean Growth Forum, a participatory pro-growth initiative led by the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, the CDB, in collaboration, Mr. Speaker, with the United Kingdom Department for International Development, DFID, and the Canadian International Development Agency, CIDA. And the objective, really, of this undertaking was to identify the factors that hinder private sector development in the region under 3 central themes, namely logistics and connectivity, investment climate, secondly, and skills and productivity, thirdly. In February 2013, the national chapter for St. Kitts and Nevis was launched, and over a 6-week period, dedicated personnel from both the public and private sectors collaborated with each other in the thematic groups to identify policies and initiatives that will facilitate growth and job creation in our federation. The recommendations derived across the various national chapters will guide the work of our professionals in all sectors as each country implements its own development strategy. A clear indication of the commitment of the international community to advance this transformation process was observed through the regional launch of an innovative financing mechanism by the European Union in March of 2013, aptly named the Caribbean Investment Facility. And the objective of this initiative is to close funding gaps by blending and leveraging European Union grant resources with the lending capacities of finance institutions and private sector capital. And this mechanism, Mr. Speaker, it provides another means by which areas identified during the Caribbean Growth Forum, such as the promotion of infrastructure to prevent or mitigate disasters, the need for improved services and diversification in regard to energy, information, and communication technology, and the provision of water and sanitation, all this can be addressed and improved. However, I want to use this opportunity to emphasize that continued partnership between all stakeholders in our societies, both in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the Caribbean region, that will remain vital to ensuring that we derive the benefits that we desire from our own assets, whether they are economic, environmental, and or social. And so, Mr. Speaker, with that preamble, it brings me now to the domestic economy. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at output prices and balance of payments, and to say that notwithstanding the mixed developments in the global economy, the Federation continues to show signs of an easing in its own economic situation, evidenced by a slowing of the contraction in economic output to 0.9% in 2012, when compared to an average decline of 3.2% during the period 2009 to 2011. And this can be attributed to positive growth in the manufacturing and tourism sectors, which expanded by 10.2% and 2.4% respectively. In June 2013, preliminary estimates indicated that the economy had expanded by 2% during the first 6 months of this year. The IMF, having concluded its 5th and 6th reviews of the Standby Arrangement, SBA, have also projected an expansion in economic activity of 2% in 2013, based on the expected upturn in the tourism sector and the mobilization of several large construction projects. And this positive report is confirmation of the success of our carefully executed economic plan that has placed priority on the continued diversification of our economy and the provision of stimulus packages where required to counter the negative effects of the global slowdown in preparation for a solid rebound. And so on a period-to-period basis, the rate of inflation for the first 6 months of 2013 was 0.6%, as compared to the 1.4% recorded for the comparable period back in 2012. And this can be attributed to the continued stabilization in prices over the 3 years since the implementation of the VAT. As inflation in the local economy is influenced by developments in commodity-producing countries, we will continue to monitor fluctuations in the global market in order to devise new strategies to counteract emerging negative effects for the benefit of all of our people. Mr. Speaker, looking at the external account situation, I want to say that based on preliminary data on the performance of the external account deficit of $222.4 million is projected for 2013. And this is a 13% increase over the deficit of $196.3 million that was recorded back in 2012. So we've increased the current account deficit. This reflects the impact of increased imports of capital goods and intermediate imports as activity associated with the increased levels of economic activity in the construction and tourism sectors in particular. And so the surplus on the services account that we are now seeing is expected to increase by about 1% to $203.5 million, or 10.7% of our GDP. And this is as a result of projected increases in the net travel receipts as the tourism sector continues to record increased increased levels of stayover arrivals. If you look at the surplus on the capital and financial account, it is projected to record a significant increase, and this is mainly as a result of strong foreign direct investment inflows related to the Citizenship by Investment program, which, as I said time and time again, is a leading global program, branded SKN. As in previous years, the surplus on the capital and financial account is expected to be sufficient to offset what would be the current account deficit, thus resulting in an overall surplus of about $116.3 million, or 6.1% of GDP, Mr. Speaker. Exactly that. Mr. Speaker, earlier I said a moment ago that there is an expected surplus on the services account. What is really responsible for this? Tourism. My government continues to undertake the development of the tourism sector. We are using policies carefully designed to ensure that the benefits of the improved performance redound into tangible benefits by stimulating entrepreneurial ventures within the various communities in our federation. And so the development of our sustainable tourism product has required that the emphasis no longer be on the pursuit of mass tourism propelled by increased arrivals, but a concerted effort to improve expenditure per capita by our visitors and optimize the value of the impact of each investment. As a result of these efforts, St. Kitts and Nevis has become a premier island destination, evidenced by our most recent accolade by the USA News and World Report, which ranks us 4th among the 16 best islands in the world, after Santorini, Bora Bora, and the Maldives. And this is because we are cognizant that the travel environment remains challenged as our source markets experience slow rates of growth and policy lethargy, which will impact the employment potential and proportion of disposable income available for international travel. In light of this, it is vital that we incorporate the use of tourism satellite accounting in order that we can adequately measure and monitor the development of the industry and its contribution to the gross domestic product. And so to advance this process, my government will commence the development of the supply and use tables in 2014, which will inform the development of the satellite account in 2014. I want to speak of the partnership that has been established with American Airlines in 2004, and how this has continued to prove beneficial with the most recent addition of 2 more non-stop flights from Miami since November 2013. These flights will operate on Thursdays and Saturdays, complementing the Friday and Sunday flights that were added in November of 2012. This brings our weekly airlift from Miami to 11. 11. Where there was none, there is now 11, which includes a twice daily service from Thursday to Sunday weekly. In order to maximize the New York route, the direct flight from JFK International has been changed to allow for an afternoon departure on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and returning on Thursday and Sunday mornings. This new schedule will further enhance the appeal of the destination to business, honeymoon, and incentive travelers. US Airways has also shown its confidence in this destination and is scheduled to commence an additional flight in March 2014, which will arrive on Sundays. This government, Mr. Speaker, has continued to explore the possibilities to fill the void left by American Eagle on the route between our Federation and San Juan. In this regard, we are pleased that arrangements are now in place for Seabourn Airlines to commence a daily service in January 2014 from San Juan to St. Kitts and continuing on to Nevis. The addition of this new airline, Mr. Speaker, will open up a substantial number of new North American gateways for both islands because of the relationship it has established with American Airlines, with JetBlue, and with Delta. This new service will also expand airlift to and from the island of Nevis for visitors, for citizens, and for our residents. Mr. Speaker, despite the challenging economic environment, St. Kitts and Nevis has been fortunate enough to continue to attract the interest of the regional and international traveler, justifying significant investment in both the public and private infrastructure. Tell me where I reach now. We are particularly pleased that our local and foreign investors continue to have confidence in this destination, as evidenced, Mr. Speaker, as evidenced by the number of resort and tourist-related projects that have been rolled out during 2013. Work has commenced on the much-anticipated construction of the Park Hyatt Hotel in Banana Bay and the Imperial Bay Beach and Golf residences, which will comprise 86 one-bedroom condominiums. The neighboring Koi Resort and Residences has completed the site preparation phase and will shortly begin the first phase of construction. The Kitts-Nevis Hill development has continued to progress and is scheduled to have a soft opening in the first quarter of 2014, with the completion of the 3-star Belmont Farm Hotel, 30 cottages, 14 villas, and, of course, a world champion golf course. Kitts-Nevis Hill, set in the foothills of Mount Lymeaga, above the green villages of Newton Ground, St. Paul's, Deer Bay, Parsons, and Sadlers, remains the best example of sustainable practices incorporated in the development process through the use of renewable energy technologies, the utilization of edible landscapes comprised of fruit trees and legumes, and the use of excavated soil and rocks in the construction process. Tourists will be able to go out and pick a mango and her guinea and eat what she is picking from the trees, Mr. Speaker. My government has also continued to encourage the participation of local investors in the development of all sectors within our economy. Therefore, we were pleased to have the groundbreaking and the commencement of work on the Golden Rock Commercial Park, which is located adjacent to the RLB International Airport. And this facility, once completed, will include a boutique hotel, a supermarket, a restaurant and bar, an amphitheater, and meeting rooms, providing options to our visitors, citizens, and residents. There is also the Montebello Residences, which is now under construction in the Olives and the Buckley's estate areas. 2 of our established small hotels, the Ocean Terrace Inn and the Frigate Bay Beach Resort, will undertake extensive renovations and refurbishment to facilitate the modernization and expansion of their accommodations, just as similar renovation work is continuing at the St. Kitts Royal Hotel, commonly known as the Jacta Village. Work will commence as well at the Ocean Terrace Inn in May of 2014, with an implementation period of 9 months, while work at the Frigate Bay Beach Resort commenced already in November last month of this year, and it is scheduled for completion during the 3rd quarter of 2014. I mention this because the improvement of these premier local hotels will further enhance the room stock available to all who desire a getaway, thereby facilitating an expansion in services and increased employment opportunities. And so we look forward to the completion of these particular works. As our marketing and airlift capacity has improved, we have observed increased inflows of passengers on a daily basis, which has surpassed the capacity of the existing arrival hall. It is essential that we provide a comfortable environment for our passengers who enter the RLB International Airport. Therefore, the St. Christopher A. Seaports Authority, SCASPA, recently undertook renovations to refurbish and expand that portion of the airport as part of its efforts to provide quality service to its customers. The cruise sector, Mr. Speaker, also continues to expand, requiring improved facilities and options for berthing of ships and the processing of the increasing number of passengers that visit our jurisdiction. And so in this regard, a new dolphin is being installed at the cargo pier in Birdwalk in order to accommodate larger cruise ships, while we anticipate work to commence on the construction of a second pier. The second pier is estimated to cost in the region of US $31 million. And this investment will provide a facility that is capable of accommodating 2 Oasis-class ships and is evidence of the practical approach being taken in respect of tangible, high-impact infrastructure development. Mr. Speaker, my government has taken a proactive role in ensuring that the potential for the creation of a green economy is made a reality for our people. Therefore, it was with great pride that we took a monumental step in the development of this federation in the commissioning of a solar energy farm at the RLB International Airport. And this will provide the required energy for this facility, with the excess provided to the St. Kitts Electricity Company's Kelec. And I want to use this opportunity to acknowledge and express our appreciation to our partners in making this venture a reality, namely the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, SCASPA, the SIDF, and of course, SCELEC. Mr. Speaker, in 2012, we became the first Caribbean country to participate in the first round of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. And evaluation, Mr. Speaker, that utilized specific criteria to ascertain the existence or lack thereof of good practices and related recommendations to assist in the mainstreaming of sustainable tourism practices. In furtherance of these efforts, my government has become a member of the Sustainable Destination Leadership Network with the support and assistance of the global nonprofit organization, Sustainable Travel International. An interagency sustainable tourism committee has been launched, comprising of representatives from the public and private sectors and non-governmental organizations. Training will be undertaken to increase awareness within the public sector, to inculcate knowledge of the principles of sustainable tourism, and facilitate increased outreach to other stakeholders. As we continue to implement our tourism strategy, please be assured that steps will be taken to protect our natural capital while facilitating sustained economic growth. Apart from the tourism sector, which was responsible for the surplus I mentioned earlier, the construction sector as well needs to be looked at. And I want to emphasize that the rewards of our hard work can be seen in the rebound of the construction sector, which is projected to expand by 7.3% in 2013, after recording a decline in economic activity of 10.3% back in 2012. And this turnaround, Mr. Speaker, could not have been accomplished without the hard work, perseverance, and vision of this government in fostering beneficial partnerships with local institutions. The continued upgrade of our public infrastructure is vital in ensuring that we are able to attract added investment not only to tourism, but across each sector of the economy. In this regard, my government has been proactive in commencing work to undertake the much-needed upgrades to the Sir Kennedy Simmons Highway and supporting road network. The objective of this project is to improve environmental and safety issues for all individuals who traverse the roads extending from the eastern end of Bastille Bay to Bay Road to the most southern end of the highway. To date, work has been completed to alleviate drainage issues at the Zenway Boulevard roundabout, as well as the bushing and resurfacing of the road to Cockleshell Bay. In addition, extensive work continues to improve drainage conditions in the Ponds Pasture area, terracing at Timothy Hill to stabilize the soil and reduce the velocity of surface runoff to prevent erosion, and the construction of a roundabout at the junction of Kim Collins Highway and the Frigate Bay Road. Our efforts were not solely angled at stimulating growth, but also to empower our citizens through land and home ownership. And so in June of this year, my government approved the distribution of 500 additional residential lots ranging from 4,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet, Mr. Speaker, in several areas around the island of St. Kitts. And this wide range of options for the purchase of land has been devised to accommodate persons from all economic classes as we continue to ensure the upward mobility of our citizens through land and home ownership. As you would recall, Mr. Speaker, in June of 2011, my government implemented the Building Material Incentive Program, which provided for the reduction in taxes applicable to building materials valued up to $400,000 in the construction of residences for first-time home owners. And this program had been scheduled for completion in December 2012. However, due to the overwhelming response from our citizens, the initiative was extended until the end of December 2013. Wow. As at October of this year, a total of 123 additional applications were approved, bringing the overall total to 473 applications. I wish to thank my cabinet colleagues and the Ministry of Finance for the development of the smooth execution of this initiative by the government, which has provided invaluable assistance to the citizens of our country. The SIDF has continued to partner with this government to further stimulate the construction sector through the provision of financing under the fund for the realization of economic empowerment through subsidized housing, which has been acronymed FRESH, and the Equity Assistance Fund as well. Since its inception in January 2012 to present, over $11 million has been disbursed through FRESH, which has translated into the construction of some 89 homes on both St. Kitts-Nevis, and the employment of over 400 persons in construction-related jobs alone. In July of 2013, the SIDF, the same SIDF, again partnered with our indigenous financial institutions in our federation through the provision of HELP. What is HELP? It is Housing Enhancement Loan Program. This new initiative provides a maximum of $100,000 at a fixed interest rate of only 5% over the term of the loan to citizens who occupy the home on which the work will be executed to facilitate renovations, remodeling, or extension of the structure. I want to encourage all of our citizens to explore these options that are now available to them in order to achieve their dream, whether it is to facilitate the purchase of land, home ownership, or the refurbishment of their existing homes, while also integrating technologies and designs that will make their homes more efficient and environmentally friendly. That is what the SIDF is doing for us in this country, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that it was Warren G. Bennis who said that, and I quote, "Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality," end of quote. And taking a cue from this statement, this government is further demonstrating unmatched leadership and delivering, Mr. Speaker, and delivering to our people as it plans now to implement a new housing solution aptly named Habitat Independence 30, which envisages 1,000 houses to be built in 2 phases, with the first phase of 500 homes, having the first 300 of the 500, I should say, powered by solar panels. 1,000 homes, 2 batches of 500s, and the first 300 of the first 500 all solar powered. Where else can that happen in the Caribbean? Mr. Speaker, this initiative will be undertaken in partnership with the SIDF, providing an opportunity for a segment of our citizens to achieve energy independence while controlling their household expenditure for the use of this utility. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at agriculture as we move forward. Agriculture, it continues to have an important role in the development and transformation of our economy, especially since it has a new minister. However, the impact of this sector is not confined to the parameters of ensuring food security and employment, but extends to the conservation of the environment. Therefore, the growth within this sector must be sustainable through the integration of techniques and processes used in crop cultivation, livestock farming, and marine resource management. And this would ensure that output in the sector is enhanced while reducing the real risk of land degradation, depletion of water resources and soil nutrients, contamination of the soil, potable and coastal waters, destruction of terrestrial and marine ecosystems, and of course, food loss. So our focus is not entirely restricted to achieving high production in this sector, but rather to take full consideration of prevailing environmental standards. We will continue to take decisive actions that will promote growth while protecting the environment to facilitate continued productive use of our resources and promote the well-being of our people. Therefore, in terms of development of the agricultural sector, we have adopted an approach that facilitates growth while implementing sound environmental management practices that will redound to the benefit of the sector and the well-being of our people. The use of traditional methods in crop production will leave us vulnerable to the effects of climate change, which include longer dry periods and intense rainy periods when they do occur. And so this is why, Mr. Speaker, we continue to seek out new technologies. We will incorporate them in our activities to ensure results across all sectors. In this regard, during 2013, the government, through the Agricultural Resource Management Project, facilitated the expansion of the use of shade houses by constructing an additional 11, bringing the total to 18. We intend to continue to use this method as a means of providing a controlled environment in which crops can be propagated year-round, notwithstanding the changes in the weather patterns. Priority will be given to utilizing this approach in the cultivation of new plant species in an effort to find varieties that are resilient, varieties that will promote a higher yield and improved profit margins, all in the interest of our farmers. The management and availability of water is vital to the continued development of the agricultural sector. However, there is a need to strike a balance between the competing uses of this very valuable resource. And so to ensure that our farmers have better access to this important input during periods of drought and to facilitate opportunities for irrigation, this government, through a component of agricultural resource management project, undertook the construction of 3 additional dams in the Belmont, Brotherson, and Parson estate areas, which were forgotten, it would appear, bringing the total to 8, Mr. Speaker. Already plans are being developed to facilitate the provision of drip irrigation equipment to a number of farmers. And the addition of this method will complement the continued efforts to maximize the use of our water resource within this agricultural sector. Our agro-processing industry, it continues to expand by leaps and bounds, which is a testimony to the commitment and the confidence that this government has shown in its development. And this niche market provides an opportunity to assist in the reduction of poverty through employment generation, the creation of sustainable livelihoods, and the preservation of our cultural heritage, while addressing food security through the reduction of food losses, increase food availability, and improve access to food. And so, cognizant of the tremendous benefits that can be derived from agro-processing, this government has allocated additional space in the newly constructed pack house at the Department of Agriculture. And this outpost will be made available to the farming community during 2014, allowing access to dry and cold storage facilities which are now there. And so we are encouraging all agro-processors from around the entire country to view this facility as an incubator to foster their development. Opportunities abound to acquire training in business management and startup financing through facilities such as the Small Enterprise Assistance Fund, the SAFE, and the Small Entrepreneur and Enterprise Development Fund, the SEED Fund, again from the SIDF. These avenues are part of the role of government to provide a facilitating environment where businesses can emerge and flourish to stimulate further growth and development. Mr. Speaker, the livestock subsector has faced many challenges which have resulted in a decline in the overall production of the subsector by 27.6% in 2012. These are setbacks. But notwithstanding these, we remain confident that we can produce quality meat products without placing undue pressure on the environs. Emphasis has been placed on the sourcing of livestock varieties that can enhance yield without farmers making huge financial outlays for the purchase of commercial feed or employing poor husbandry practices. And so I want to remind us that it was in February of 2013, this year, that the St. Kitts Livestock Association was established, and with the assistance from government, it gained access to resources from the SIDF, which has been used to acquire 80 pigs, special breed, from the United States of America, specifically the Duroc and the Yorkshire breeds. These two varieties require less feed, but despite less feed, they gain significant amount of weight, which is vital in the increase of output and resultant revenue while reducing production cost. Special hogs. Plans are being developed, it would appear. Sorry. Mr. Speaker.
I'm sure they're not in your text.
It's not in the text. Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize that small island developing states, which include St. Kitts and Nevis, we rely heavily on our marine, coastal, and fisheries resources to provide needed protection to the coastline, sustainable and sustained livelihoods and nutrition. And this is the context in which government, through the Department of Marine Resources, has incorporated the ecosystems approach to fisheries management in order to facilitate the transition of the fisheries subsector from a fishery-based management system to a holistic marine resource management system. And so in order to ensure the effective management of our marine resources and the curtailment of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, we have sought the assistance from the Commonwealth Secretariat in resolving our outstanding marine boundaries issues with five neighboring countries. In October of this year, a delegation from St. Kitts and Nevis and the Netherlands, they met at the headquarters of the Secretariat in London to negotiate the delineation of the marine boundaries with our Dutch neighbors. And significant progress has been made in this regard, and it is anticipated that an agreement will be finalized by the end of the second quarter of 2014. Mr. Speaker, I want to look very quickly. I was thinking of skipping it, but I won't. I want to look very quickly at the industrial and enterprise development that is taking place, especially setting the stage for 2014. And I want to say that the manufacturing sector showed signs of a rebound in 2012, despite the continued slow economic recovery in its major trading markets. The sector's output increased by 10.2%, recording a total value of some $114.6 million. And this outturn is attributed to the performance of the enclave sector, which involves the assembly of electronic components exported to the United States of America, which expanded by 28.8% with a total value of $94.6 million in 2012, when compared to the $90.5 million recorded in 2011. And so, my government, being cognizant of the important role that the sector plays in providing consistent employment for hundreds of our young ladies on the industrial estate, and young men, and also in Sandy Point, has continued to provide financial and technical support when required to ensure stability for the hundreds of persons, predominantly females, who, as I said, rely on the viability of the various business ventures in this particular sector. And so, as we embark on the second phase of the transformation of our economy, it is important for us to foster the development of industries that will support the transition to a sustainable island state, as well as expand our production base. That's why we went to Taiwan a few weeks ago, I should say. Because the opening of the Speedtech Energy St. Kitts-Nevis Limited is a tangible example of my government attempts to attract new businesses that will help us to strike a balance between good environmental management and progressive development for the full benefit of our people. The manufacturing sector is important, and we traveled to Taiwan just a few weeks ago, held high-level discussions with over 50 businessmen in the manufacturing sector, asking them for their support and cooperation in this regard. Mr. Speaker, although trade agreements can facilitate the expansion of business opportunities, the use of hazardous chemicals in the production of goods and the failure to appropriately dispose of them can have serious implications for both businesses and consumers. Over the past 2 decades, St. Kitts-Nevis has become party to 3 environmental agreements, namely the Stockholm Convention, the Basel Ball Convention, I think it is pronounced, on the control of transboundary movements of hazardous waste and their disposal, and the Rotterdam Convention on the prior informed consent procedures for certain hazardous chemicals and pesticides in international trade. And so as we move forward in the development of our industries, it is vital that these matters be given serious attention, as failure in this regard can lead to the contamination of our land, our water, our marine environment, especially at a time when we're talking about a sustainable island state. During 2014, the Ministry of International Trade will focus on strengthening the capacity of the Multipurpose Lab and the Bureau of Standards in order to ensure that it can undertake the necessary tests across the various industries and sectors. The Bureau of Standards has already taken the lead in the implementation of the Eastern Caribbean Energy Labeling Project here in our Federation, which will facilitate the introduction of energy efficiency labels and standards for electrical household appliances and lighting equipment, and the promotion of energy-efficient products, the greening of the economy. It requires us to be ready to validate the chemical components of inputs and of outputs of production, as well as the efficiency of mechanisms that drive the engines of industry. I use this opportunity to thank the members of the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board for their continued work and their vigilance, and indicate our commitment to become a party of the Minamata Convention for Mercury in order to avail ourselves of the opportunities it provides in protecting the health of our people and the environment from the adverse effects of mercury. Mr. Speaker, I want to say something about small, medium enterprises, and to say that the Ministry of Industry and Commerce continues to provide a facilitating environment that will foster the development of this subsector. Our SMEs, they continue to face the challenge of skill development, the challenge of financing, and of course the challenge of energy cost. The National Entrepreneurial Development Division, NED as it is called, continue to provide technical support to entrepreneurs in the Federation in the preparation of their business plans, grant proposal writing, and other areas vital to building and sustaining viable businesses. The assistance that is being provided by NED has been invaluable to these business ventures as they pursue financing options provided through the Small Enterprise Assistance Fund, the SAFE, and the Small Entrepreneur and Enterprise Fund, the SEED Fund. Mr. Speaker, in October 2012, we approved the removal of the customs service charge and the import duty on renewable energy and energy efficiency technologies. The overall objective here of this particular policy decision was to encourage the incorporation of these types of equipment and supplies as energy-saving mechanisms across all sectors, particularly our small businesses and our manufacturers, in order to reduce the overhead costs that are related to energy consumption. We ask the same thing to become a main area of concern to our consumers at the domestic level. The support provided by my government remains vital in the development of our small and medium businesses. Therefore, I want to encourage our entrepreneurs to look beyond the traditional business ventures. A green economy cannot be created or sustained here in St. Kitts and Nevis without that willingness of our manufacturers and other entrepreneurs to explore new areas. Indeed, I am encouraged to observe the willingness of some local businesses to act on the invitation extended by my government to partner with us in the greening of our economy. And so I want to make specific mention of SL Horsford and Company Limited, the TDC group of companies, give them some applause, fellas, which have invested and recently commissioned solar energy infrastructure at Valumat and TDC Home and Building Depot, respectively. The proposal for TDC to introduce a green department that will specialize in energy efficiency, commercial and household products is also welcome news. Both companies and all their other businesses making similar investments deserve commendation for the very tangible demonstration of the type of forward thinking and action my government has been advocating for some time. Applaud yourself, guys. Moreover, we are confident that there is potential for a mix of business opportunities to create green jobs ranging from the assembly of renewable energy and energy-efficient equipment to the use of upcycling, through which old or discarded materials are converted into something useful and something beautiful. It is encouraging to note that there is already some initiative taken by existing businesses and civil society to embrace these particular trends. I use this opportunity to commend the Reach Hamilton Community Group of Nevis, which has embarked on a venture utilizing this process as a means of addressing issues related to the environment and the youth at risk. Mr. Speaker, I turn to information technology and telecommunications because I believe that the development of St. Kitts-Nevis and its people, they are constantly constrained by our physical boundaries, but not by the constraint by physical boundaries, but by the limits that we impose on ourselves. And so to facilitate the engagement of our young minds, we have continued to provide improved technology tools to our teachers and our students. We believe that technology can accelerate the development of new teaching methodologies, create education-based information societies, innovation and creativity at all levels of our education system. Although the one-to-one laptop project has concluded, we have continued to meet our commitments, not really concluded, continuing. We have continued to meet our commitment as evidenced by the distribution of additional laptops in April of this year to our teachers, and most recently, our first and second form students. In other words, we have completed the set of students who are currently in school, and the program is now extended to every new first former who enters into a high school. Government is taking on that expense. In order to facilitate the integration of this equipment in the learning process, my government commenced work to develop an education network, EduNet, in 2012 for installation of our 8 public high schools. In fact, just yesterday, our Minister of Technology was in discussion with the relevant service provider on the EduNet. This initiative was financed by the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, and to provide, that is the fund for this commission, and to provide an education communications network to remove the divide of geography and infrastructure through the provision of broadband-empowered inter-school resource sharing and internet access. This undertaking was successfully completed in November of this year and now provides digital inclusion, virtual classrooms, peer tutoring, and master teacher instruction. I remember when we were visiting the schools, the Barcy High School at September, the students in Sandy Point, students in Keon, in Sadlers, were all interlinked, seeing exactly what was happening. It is now in place, it is working. I want to emphasize that we have long understood the importance of the integration of technology in enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of the provision of services to the public. However, the high cost of unmanaged standalone information and communication technology investment and the segmented approach to e-government in the region has been identified as hindrances to the smooth integration of appropriate hardware and software into our established systems. And so in this regard, my government sought to benefit from the economies of scale through our participation in the Caribbean Civil Registry project that has already been implemented by the Organization of American States, the OAS, with funding from the governments of Canada, Luxembourg, and Korea. Yes, we should thank them. This initiative has been facilitated in 6 Caribbean community member states in order to assist the digitalization of births, of deaths, and marriage registration, in order to provide uniform vital statistics across the Caribbean region. The project facilitated the purchase of required equipment, access to the developed software, and training of 7 persons locally. And this team facilitated the scanning and input of information from 426 registry ledgers. 426 registry ledgers containing 8,520 pages of birth certificates. Although this initiative was completed in September of this year, work will continue to ensure that death and marriage certificates are uploaded as we aim to reduce our carbon footprint while continuing to enhance the efficiency of our operations. Mr. Speaker, this government has made great strides in the development of the ICT sector as we choose to think big, start small, and scale up fast. Let me repeat that. Think big, start small, and scale up fast. In order to continue to capitalize on the gains made and accelerate the integration of information technology solutions, there is need to ensure that our legislative and policy framework is aligned with the regional and international requirements. Let me pause and say that. Think big, start small, and scale up fast. I'm borrowing it, eh? It's not mine. Consequently, my government has sought assistance under the enhanced competitiveness in the Caribbean through the harmonization of ICT policies, legislation, and regulatory procedures to provide in-country assistance to update draft legislations to bring them in line with best practices. During 2013, work was completed on the Privacy and Personal Information Protection Bill 2013, the Right of Access to Information Bill 2013, and amendments to the Electronic Crimes 2009, Interception of Communications 2011, and the Electronic Transactions 2010 Acts. These laws will serve to clearly outline the legislative parameters that will guide the management and access to data and documents, inclusive of electronic files. And so my government, through the various ministries and departments, will continue to take the necessary steps to enhance the technological landscape to facilitate our continued social and economic development. Mr. Speaker, I want to say something about energy, because this government remains cognizant of the need to have a reliable, affordable, clean energy supply in order to facilitate sustained economic growth and development. However, high cost of oil in or on the international market, as geopolitical relations remain tenuous, require that this caring government devise mechanisms to reduce the impact of the resultant increase in electricity rates on our citizens. As a result, we have implemented a medium-term plan to subsidize the fuel surcharge, which has already brought relief to all residential consumers. It's true. Currently, customers who consume less than 250 kilowatt hours of electricity are not required to pay the fuel surcharge, while benefiting from added reductions in the monthly payments on their electricity bills. Mr. Speaker, well over 16,000 residential consumers are benefiting from this program at an estimated assured cost of $8 million. Where is it coming from? SIDF. As at April 2013, households had saved over $750,000. And in line with market forces and an equitable distribution of benefits, those consumers who utilize in excess of 250 kilowatt hours have been provided assistance, allowing for the payment of the fuel surcharge ranging from 50% to 90% based on their consumption patterns. All are being assisted. I implore our citizens to adopt energy conservation practices as part of our daily operations, whether it is in their private homes or professional capacities, in order to maximize the benefits of this particular initiative. As indicated earlier, my government has always chosen to lead by example And it is no different as we pause and as we also pursue the integration of green energy technologies and methodologies across the Federation. Again, I want to use this opportunity to highlight our most recent accomplishment of the commissioning of a solar energy farm at our airport. This plant, with a full capacity generation of 1.3 megawatts annually, will provide the energy needs of this facility, thereby saving SCASPA approximately $800,000 in energy costs. $750,000 and more SCASPA is saving as a result of this investment. The opening of Speedtech Energy, St. Kitts-Nevis Limited, in July of this year, it changed the trajectory of renewable energy sector from one of merely consumption to one of production-based sector. And this company has been undertaking the required training of persons from both St. Kitts and Nevis to provide them with the knowledge and the skills to facilitate the assembly of the solar panels that will be produced. These training exercises will be completed by the end of 2013, and the factory will commence full operation during the first quarter of 2014. The presence of such a business in our shores will redound to significant reductions in the cost of this renewable technology and ease of access to the ordinary people. I invite, therefore, more and more of our young people in going off to study to make sure that they are studying the new technologies associated with renewable energy. Mr. Speaker, my government remains committed to the development of geothermal, wind, and waste to energy as viable means of providing affordable electricity to our citizens. And this federation pioneered the exploration of green energy in the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States region. And it is time for us to illustrate that size is not a liability, but it is an asset. In this regard, my government will continue to explore opportunities for viable partnerships, which will facilitate the development of geothermal energy. Once fully developed, it will allow for significant reductions in the cost of energy and provide the possibility for a new export product and a new stream of revenue. The development of waste to energy will serve to address two critical issues: the need for alternative sources of energy and, of course, handling our waste management issues. The rapid development of St. Kitts over the past 2 decades has resulted in increased demand on the Connery landfill to facilitate the disposal of waste generated both residentially and commercially. Therefore, in 2013, the government took a two-pronged approach to the purchase of a baler to facilitate the hygienic storage of waste transported to the landfill. The product from the baler will then be used as part of the source material in the conversion of waste to energy. The establishment of a waste-to-energy plant can assist in reducing the quantity of waste stored in the landfill by roughly 95%. And so as we continue to develop these various initiatives, the opportunities for employment in new areas will continue to emerge, further expanding our own economic output. This is why my government very shortly will be launching an initiative where affordable homes provided by the National Housing Corporation will be equipped with and powered by solar panels. Indeed, we are excited that through this program, the beneficiaries, our citizens, will realize significant reductions in their energy cost, significant reductions in their electricity bills, which is what we are committed to do from the very beginning, Mr. Speaker. I now turn, Mr. Speaker, getting down to the end, still about halfway, to the financial sector. And so, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased again to report to this Honorable House, in looking at the financial sector and looking specifically at the commercial banks. I want to report that to this Honorable House that our commercial banks continue to be sound and well capitalized, ensuring their readiness to be a major facilitator in the continued development of St. Kitts-Nevis. When this government entered into the standby arrangement with the International Monetary Fund in 2011, we established a banking sector reserve fund. And this mechanism was put in place as a type of insurance to provide stability to the domestic financial system in the event, just in case, the unlikely event of adverse effects of external shocks. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has continued to undertake quarterly stress tests of the sector and have determined that it remains resilient to a range of shocks. This is evidenced by the fact that this government has no reason to request a release of funds from the Banking Sector Reserve Fund. They haven't done it at all. And we're almost at the end of this standby arrangement. We remain committed to the efforts of the Joint Financial Sector Task Force, comprised of the central bank, that central bank of ours, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the IMF, as we are aware that the continued stability of the banking sector will provide confidence to our investors and individual depositors. However, this accomplishment will not translate into benefits for our people unless the excess liquidity is made accessible to facilitate investment in productive activities. We therefore call on our partners in the sector to seek the appropriate balance that will ensure their financial stability while at the same time expanding their involvement in an economy poised for a very strong rebound. Mr. Speaker, I can speak of the Development Bank, but I'm saving time. You'd get to read it. I can also say something about the currency union and capital markets, but I allow you to read it in the book. I want to look, however, at the St. Kitts Investment Promotion Agency, Skipper. I know I would not be forgiven if I did not, so I have to do it. Mr. Speaker, during 2013, Skipper continued to undertake its mandates. Very important mandates. Is she? A very important mandate to attract new investment to St. Kitts and to support the expansion of existing businesses, particularly in the areas of tourism, information and technology, and financial services. And of course, international education, manufacturing, renewable energy, and agriculture. The agency has developed a promotional strategy that is aimed to create synergies between our tourism and investment markets, illustrated by its new slogan, St. Kitts Visit and Invest. Let me repeat it. The new slogan we've adopted, St. Kitts Visit and Invest. In 2003, these efforts translated into a number of large-scale real estate projects coming on stream, and over $500 million in investment in the pipeline that will result in increased local and foreign direct investments in 2014. And the main driver of investment activity has been the Citizenship by Investment Program, the CIP, which has resulted in a robust luxury real estate sector dominated by mixed-use condominium and villa and hotel projects. That's where we are. Skipper has facilitated approvals for the construction of some US $90 million Pelican Bay condominium hotel at Potato Bay. Also, Skipper has helped with bringing a US $40 million Hillsborough Sunset Suites at McKinley Heights, and another US $100 million prime developments at Half Moon Bay. Local investors have also capitalized on our favorable investment climate to establish businesses that create employment opportunities for our people. These include the launching of the Adventure Park in Sadlers and the construction of the Golden Rock Commercial Park in the Connery area. Skipper has continued to receive positive responses from the investors as it relates to the development of renewable energy. To facilitate the comprehensive review of proposals presented for consideration, the agency has worked closely with stakeholders from the public sector, including the Department of Energy and SCELEC. And one of the achievements of this multidisciplinary committee has been the advancement of the Waste to Energy initiative. The manufacturing sector has also attracted the interest of potential investors who see a lucrative opportunity in the green economy. Discussions are well advanced to facilitate the establishment of a business venture that will manufacture light-emitting diodes, lighting products for the local and regional markets. And this project, once approved, will bring substantial benefits to St. Kitts and Nevis by making inroads in promoting energy conservation, which represents one of our key policy initiatives, as well as the creation of employment and expansion of our production base. Mr. Speaker, the green economy has been identified as a major component in facilitating sustained growth and development within the Federation, which will translate into poverty reduction. So I want to look very quickly at some cost-cutting issues, especially as they would impact on our social development. And I want to emphasize that this government is aware that the pursuit of a green economy will not automatically alleviate the issue of poverty, but requires a concerted effort to ensure that formulated policies are equitable in areas such as housing, land, academic and skills training, access to clean water and energy, and healthcare. My government has taken proactive steps to provide the supporting environment to provide assistance to those who are most vulnerable within our society. And so during 2013, the preparatory work on the implementation of Phase 1 of the National Social Protection Strategy continued. The ministry conducted 3 key activities. They are: 1, the completion of the implementation work plan; 2, the development of a program document for the molding, empowering, nurturing, directing. They refer to this as MEND and co-responsibility. Thirdly, the training of social assistance officers in monitoring and evaluation techniques. And so to ensure the success of this program, the government has committed the necessary resources required to bring about a notable change in the provision of the service delivery and proper monitoring and evaluation. We do not intend to institutionalize poverty and dependency on government for subsidies. Hence, the government's major input has focused on building capacity to deliver a much-needed service to families through the MEND Families program. What is the MEND? It is molding, empowering, nurturing, and directing. It's mending families. That's what we're doing in this program. And this is an example of the government's commitment to uplifting families. We firmly believe that families are immeasurably important and are the building blocks of a strong and cohesive society. As a result, some of our poverty reduction strategies will be targeting the family. The 21 families participating in this pilot MEND program will receive a financial benefit along with a circle of wrap-around services that are designed to strengthen family bonding. The services will also empower them to make decisions to improve their well-being and identify and acquire skills to enter the labor market. Financial and psychological support will be provided for 2 years to these 20 families that are in the MEND program, pilot program. The program is centered around 7 pillars. 1, identification. Each family will acquire at least 3 basic forms of identification for its family members. 2, health and wellness. Families will be required to take annual checkups, ensure that children are immunized, and attend health informational sessions. 3, education. Families will be responsible for ensuring that their children attend school, not just attend school, but attend school regularly and attend school parent-teacher conference meetings. Parents must turn up at these parent and teachers' meetings. 4, family dynamics. Families will be required to set aside family time and participate in developmental workshops, for example, in areas such as health, areas such as budgeting and parenting. It is expected that these activities will contribute to the positive emotional and social development of adults and children within families, thereby building resilience and nurturing supportive relationships. 5, housing. The living conditions of homes will be assessed and a plan for improvement will be put in place. 6, employment. Adult family members will be encouraged to identify skills for the labor market, and training programs will be tailored to facilitate entrance to the labor market. And 7, income. Budgeting will be a core activity for families. Families will learn to manage the financial benefit that they receive under this particular program. And I want to emphasize that a fundamental value which underpins this experience is that of responsibility, mending, so that they can become more responsible to look after their affairs and the family affairs. And through the various activities, the families will be expected to fulfill the conditions in order to receive the financial benefit via a debit card. We call it modern debit card. This new system will help families to more confidently manage their monies with the guidance of the assigned case workers. It is for this reason that all the service providers across ministries, for example, education, health, youth, sustainable development, and Department of Labor, play an important role in this program. Increasing the resiliency and self-sufficiency of clients remain an overarching goal. It is hoped that at the end of 2 years, families would become more confident in their decision-making and would have acquired the skills for the labor market and may be employed. They would be more responsible. An assessment would then be conducted to verify areas of improvement so that families can exit the program. They're not there forever. We don't want to institutionalize poverty and dependence. We want to get them off. This pilot exercise begins with 21 families, and by 2015, we expect the number to increase to 80, but not the same people, of course. The program should accommodate 140 families in 2016, and by 2017, 200 families. Good? Mr. Speaker, I want to say that progress continues in 2014 with the finalization of a best fit proxy means test to ensure improved accuracy of targeting and the development of a monitoring and evaluation plan that would provide useful data to inform any change in the program. Allocations will continue to be made to support the other social assistance programs for older persons and children, including food vouchers, burial, and medical assistance. And you're not going to be allowed to double dip and triple dip in this. I want to warn that, please. I wish to extend sincerest thanks to the regional and international agencies that have worked with the Ministry of Social Development to provide the technical and financial assistance. We are very proud that these agencies are using St. Kitts-Nevis as the model in the OECS for the consultative and measured approach to tackling poverty. Our appreciation goes to the OECS Social Development Unit, Organization of American States, UNICEF, and UN Women for providing the opportunities to train our key focal points in the ministry, in strategic planning, in monitoring and evaluation, and also offering training in social planning toolkits. St. Kitts and Nevis will now lead the way on sharing best practices about social protection. And so I want to thank our minister here in this regard, and those in the ministry who support her, and those who are doing the field work as well, to bring this recognition to our country, where we are leading in the alleviation of poverty through a new program. My government is cognizant that knowledge and skills development is a vital component in improving the earning potential of our people and advancing our efforts to reduce poverty. And this need became even greater as our economy continued to contract due to the protracted effects of the global recession. As a result, this visionary government, in partnership with the SIDF, embarked on the development of the People Empowerment Program, affectionately referred to as the PEP, as a means of providing unemployed citizens, particularly our young people, an opportunity to learn a skill and access short-term employment opportunities in preparation for the jobs that are being created as the economy expands. With the strategic guidance of public and private sector partners, the PEP is currently being executed under 6 sub-projects. The Engaging Qualified Interns Project, EQUIP, the National Infrastructure Improvement Project, NIP, the Agro-Enterprise Training and Management Project, the ATM, the Women in Construction Trains, the, what do you call that? The WIT, the WIC, the WISE, the WIT, and skills training and enterprise and entrepreneurial development called the STED, and the Women in Small Enterprise, the WISE initiatives. Wow. As at October 2013, a total of 2,932 persons from both St. Kitts and Nevis have been enrolled on the PEP across these various sub-projects. Are they still there? No. To date, some of these individuals have found permanent jobs. Important. Notwithstanding the achievements recorded to date under this program, my government, through the Ministry of Education and Information, commits to intensify its efforts to facilitate the continued development of our adult continuing education training framework. And this framework, it will ensure that the certifications provided to these PEP trainees after graduation are in line with the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, the CVQ framework, to support the anti-poverty strategy of this government to improve the national, regional, and international marketability of our people. Mr. Speaker, my government, it wishes to acknowledge that access to affordable health care is a precondition for creating an inclusive, equitable, economically productive, and healthy nation. And so to this end, I want to report that the preparatory work to facilitate the implementation of a national health insurance scheme has advanced following the completion of the recently launched National Health Accounts initiatives, undertaken in collaboration with the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the University of the West Indies. The estimates collected continue to be instrumental in informing evidence-based decision-making in order to ensure that every national of St. Kitts and Nevis is provided with a cost-effective, comprehensive, and sustainable healthcare insurance scheme to reduce the financial burden that can accompany major illnesses. This national healthcare scheme will include coverage for a number of medical services such as mammograms, ambulance service, breast cancer treatment, dental and eye care, and elderly care in order to improve the overall health care and well-being of our citizens. Notice it did not say prostate cancer. I don't know why. We'll have to change that. I use this opportunity, of course, to thank all stakeholders. Take note, we will change it. I use this opportunity to thank all stakeholders in the public and private sectors who have partnered with us in bringing these achievements to fruition. I must go on, but I want to say something about law and order. And to say that the government focuses on the establishment of comprehensive safety net programs and the stimulation of economic growth to enhance the welfare of our people. And so we are cognizant that these gains cannot be achieved in an environment that is void of law and order. Never. The success of our strategy has been evident in the increased capabilities of professionalism of our security forces and the reduction in the reported incidents of crime in several areas. Just this morning, latest statistics, 46.6 reduction in crime. That is significant. Very significant. However, we remain vigilant as the causes of criminal activity are multifaceted and require persistent effort and determination from all stakeholders in our society. This government will continue to undertake its mandate to provide the necessary financial and technical support required to strengthen our security forces in collaboration with stakeholders from the private sector, from the NGOs, from the community-based organizations, the CBOs, and those who have chosen to partner with us in a private capacity. We remain confident that there is one goal, that is to ensure that our federation is guided by law and order and is a safe place for residents, visitors, and local and foreign investors to engage in leisure and business activities. It is imperative, Mr. Speaker, that we continue to integrate new approaches, technologies, and equipment that not only enhance the crime-fighting capabilities of the security forces, but bring, but bring, Mr. Speaker, the operations in line with regional and international standards. And so in December 2012, the Crime Stoppers of St. Kitts-Nevis initiative was launched as an additional crime-fighting tool in order to provide a means by which vital information can be provided confidentially, thereby increasing that very important partnership with the public. And since it became operational, several arrests, Mr. Speaker, have been made. And 2 cold cases, they have been reopened. They are now hot as a result of concrete tips received from our citizens through Crime Stoppers. Don't mess with us. We will promote the increased use of this medium by continuing to highlight its accessibility, confidentiality, and benefits to the society. Efforts have continued to use technology for the benefit of the police force in the execution of its duties, while also empowering the public to protect themselves and their property. And so in this regard, Absolute Software Corporation, it has donated 200 free licenses of the LoJack laptop recovery system for a period of 1 year. Anybody steal it with that LoJack on it, you find it. This software will be made available to businesses and consumers to enable the tracking and the management and the enhancement of security to facilitate the retrieval of laptops in the event theft has occurred. The capabilities of this system have already proven to be effective in the recovery of these devices through its deployment at our medical universities and will be most vital in protecting not only private investment, but those made by the state in the education system as well. Ghost. Yes. The use of closed-circuit television the CCTV surveillance continue to be a priority in reducing the incidence of crime within our communities. And so in this regard, my government has partnered with the Coalition of Support for St. Kitts and Nevis Security Initiatives, the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, and the SIDF in order to design an effective, robust system that will benefit both islands over the medium to long term. In order to ensure sustainability of the system, the implementation of this initiative will be undertaken in phases, with the primary focus being those areas that have been identified as hotspots for criminal activity. Mr. Speaker, the unwavering support of our international partners in the development of the security sector should not be taken for granted. With the assistance of the European Union, we continue to implement activities under the Safety and Security Improvement Program. And during 2013, work was accelerated under the various components of this initiative, bringing us closer to the finalizing the purchase of needed vehicles such as a fire tender, earmarked for commission on the island of Nevis, a mobile police station, and 5 four-wheel drive vehicles. We have undertaken the procurement process to recruit a technical assistance team that will facilitate the coordination of the project and undertake vital work in regard to the institutional development of the police and prison services. This initiative has also assisted in the implementation of 10 youth at-risk programs executed by public sector ministries and entities, NGOs and CBOs from both St. Kitts and Nevis. The government of Mexico, it has remained a willing partner in support to improve our security infrastructure as work commenced to construct a new police station in Tabernacle, which will provide accommodation for all branches of the security forces. It is anticipated that this new outpost will be completed by the end of this year, 2030. Wow. Water, life. Mr. Speaker, my government will continue to ensure that our legal framework is modernized in order to support the judiciary in effectively prosecuting those who infringe on the rights of the state. During 2013, this Honorable House passed several pieces of legislation, including the National Emblem and National Anthem Act, which recognizes both of these national symbols as the property of the state, requiring that a permit be sought in order to use these images while making provisions for recourse when there is incidents of abuse. People are putting our logos on their letterheads. Has to come to an end. It's illegal. We have also passed the DNA Act, which provides a legal basis for the collection and analysis of DNA in the investigation and prosecution of crimes, with provisions for the law to be applied retroactively to crimes committed prior to the enactment of the legislation, and, of course, the Integrity in Public Life Act, which serves to mitigate corruption in the public service, which, of course, the opposition did not support at all in this House. Amendments to existing laws were also undertaken, including the Evidence Amendment Act, to facilitate provisions for the introduction of DNA evidence, in line with the introduction of the DNA Act and the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, which repealed the Bankruptcy Act of 1889, introducing new procedures and practices applicable to both individual and corporate entities, and the establishment of the post of Supervisor of Insolvency. Better to do, easier now to do business here with regard to corporations being owned up. In August of this year, we took an important step to further enhance our cooperation with the international community in regard to combating crime and providing recourse in the judicial system with the signing of an extradition treaty with the Republic of China, Taiwan. And this agreement strengthens our own global approach to crime fighting, ensuring that those who have broken the law in either jurisdiction, either Taiwan or here in St. Kitts and Nevis, will not find any refuge in any of these two states. They will be handed over. Mr. Speaker, I use this opportunity to again emphasize that security and an efficient judiciary is an essential precondition in providing a facilitating environment that is conducive to the development and expansion of business and investment opportunities. Therefore, this government will continue to intensify its crime fighting and security efforts and modernization of our own judicial framework. I now turn, Mr. Speaker, to look at the public finance. Go ahead. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, I want to look firstly at a fiscal review and outlook. I'm winding down. And I want you to recall, Mr. Speaker, that a few years ago, in 2011 to be exact, my government approached the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, to assist us with the execution of our economic recovery program. The program is focused on the implementation of several structural reforms that would put us on an even stronger footing in the management of public finances, improving our institutional framework in various areas, and providing a strong social safety net program. So far, we have made substantial progress with our reforms, and if I may, Mr. Speaker, I will outline a few of our successes to date. One of our major undertakings in recent times was the comprehensive restructuring of our debt. As you can imagine, this was not an easy decision at all, but it was a necessary one because the restructuring exercise is almost complete and has so far resulted in a significant reduction in our public debt. A company called the Special Land Sales Company, St. Kitts Limited, was established, and we are in the process of having it fully operationalized. This company will facilitate the sale of lands that were associated with the debt for land swap, either sale or development. To safeguard the successes we have achieved so far and to keep the debt on a sustainable path, we prepared a medium-term debt management strategy, which we use as a guide to manage the debt stock. The strategy was laid before this Honorable House last year and will be updated from time to time. In addition to the medium-term debt management strategy, a medium-term expenditure framework was prepared to improve our annual budget process and to strengthen the link between our policies, planning, and budgeting. The framework is intended to make sure that public monies that we are responsible for are used efficiently and effectively. The efficient use of public monies will also be governed by the Procurement and Contract Administration Act that was passed by this Honorable House in September of last year. The Act is intended to ensure that there is public competition for all procurement, with a few exceptions, and to make the entire procurement process a transparent one. The enforcement of the Act will make certain that we obtain the best value for money through the establishment of a modern, competitive procurement system. Mr. Speaker, for quite a number of years, we have been speaking about civil service reform, but progress in this area has been very, very slow. I am now pleased to inform you, Mr. Speaker, that my cabinet approved an action plan that will make certain that work in this area is advanced. The action plan highlights the need to review the organization and the structure of the civil service and addresses wage policies and the management of the payroll. My cabinet also approved the National Social Protection Strategy that was informed by a comprehensive review of the social safety net programs that we administer to the poor and to the vulnerable. The strategy will be implemented in phases, with the first phase focusing on the consolidation and the strengthening of the social safety net arrangements in the Federation in order to improve their coverage and impact for the poorest and most vulnerable members of the population. I told you of the MEND program. The structural reforms that I just mentioned were accompanied by a number of fiscal measures, such as the restructuring of the Housing and Social Development Levy, the introduction of value-added tax, the elimination of exemptions from the customs service charge, the corporatization of the electricity department, and the implementation of a wage and hiring freeze. These measures have contributed to an improvement in the fiscal outturn since their implementation. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at fiscal performance. And as we look back at our fiscal performance for 2012, I can now confirm that at the end of 2012 fiscal year, we realized a recurrent account surplus of $101.3 million, an overall surplus of $102.9 million, and a primary surplus of $199.3 million, Mr. Speaker. The recurrent account surplus was, of course, fellas asleep. The success of our citizenship, let me go back up. The recurrent account surplus was $54.7 million, above the outturn for 2011, and exceeded our 2012 estimate but by $100.9 million. And I want to emphasize that the success of our Citizenship by Investment program continued to have a positive impact on non-tax revenue, which was the primary contributor to the strong fiscal performance for 2012. You now understand why people are attacking it. Now you understand. Tax revenue, on the other hand, amounted to $314.6 million. And this was $2.3 million, or 0.7% below the 2011 level, and $12.7 million, or 3.9% less than the 2012 estimates. And I want to say that this underperformance of the tax revenue is in keeping with the economic conditions we experienced in 2012 as a result of the global recession. But we are concerned, and we still keep an eye on it. However, we expect tax collections to increase substantially as the growth rate increases. Very important. Taxes on income continued its downward trend, where collections for 2012 were $5.2 million, or 7% less than the previous year. But it was surpassed by the budget, by $2.2 million, or 3.3%. The Housing and Social Development Levy, which was restructured in 2011, it continued to perform beyond expectations, exceeding the budget by 5.9%. Looking at revenue from corporate income tax, however, this was 1.5% below the estimate and 8.8% less than the amount collected in 2011. Taxes on domestic goods and consumption were also lower than both the previous year, and the budget mainly on account of a reduction in revenue from the value-added tax. And you know why. Taxes on international trade and transactions, however, exceeded what was collected in 2011, as exemptions from the payment of customs service charge were curtailed in an effort to improve tax revenue. So we have an issue with our tax revenue. Nonetheless, this category of taxes fell below the budget as non-fuel imports for 2012 were less than expected. With respect to recurrent expenditure, Mr. Speaker, expenditure for 2012 surpassed the estimates by 7.3%, but this was 11.1% less than the amount spent in 2011, mainly on account of the electricity department being corporatized. As a result, the operations of that department were no longer a cost to the federal government. It's now a private entity. The corporatization of the electricity department, however, meant that the government not only had to pay for electricity consumed, we're paying for all this now. We had to pay for electricity consumed by the various ministries, but also for street lighting, which we must know. Although provision was made in the 2012 estimates to pay for the consumption of electricity, the actual amount that was spent for the year exceeded the budget. I therefore urge government ministries and departments to do their part in transforming our economy to a green economy. We need to conserve energy. We need to use alternative energy. We need to go green. Apart from the over-expenditure on the consumption of electricity, the amount expended for consultancy fees in relation to debt restructuring was higher than anticipated, as the debt restructuring exercise took longer than originally envisioned. Nonetheless, the restructuring of the debt was the primary reason for the interest payments being 1.3% below the estimate and 4.6% below that spent in 2011. The over-expenditure on goods and services was moderated by savings that were realized in personnel emoluments, wages and allowances, as the wage and hiring freeze that was implemented in 2010 continued into 2012. Consequently, this category of expenditure was 1.4% less than the budget and 0.3% less than the previous year. The overall fiscal outturn was aided by the receipt of grants, mostly from the European Union, which were used to finance both recurrent and capital expenditure. Mr. Speaker, for the 2012 fiscal year, capital expenditure and net lending amounted to $55.5 million, 6.2% below what we anticipated we would spend, but 22.4% above what was spent in 2011. Of the projects that were undertaken during the year, 65.5% of them were financed from revenue. Important. While 21.1% were funded through loan disbursements and 13.4% from grant funds we have received. Included in the revenue-funded expenditure were the purchase of an office building at Golden Rock, a project to enhance the border security capabilities of the Customs and Excise Department, and expenditure related to the special land distribution initiatives. Revenue was also used to expand the water capacity on the island, relocate the customer service division of the water department, install a new billing system for that department, and upgrade several of the sporting facilities around the island of St. Kitts. As we made a concerted effort not to increase the debt burden, the use of loan financing for capital projects was kept at a minimum, naturally. In fact, out of the myriad of projects that were undertaken in 2012, only 3 were financed by borrowing. 3. The Hurricane Lenny Rehabilitation Project was 1, the Child Development Project was 2, and the project to upgrade the equipment at the Public Works Department in anticipation of what is happening on the Sir Kennedy Simmons Highway. The e-passport and the border management system projects continued into 2012 and were facilitated through the acquisition of grant resources. What is the outlook for 2013, Mr. Speaker? As we approach the end of 2013, it is only fitting that I share with you our expectation for this fiscal year. Based on the information we have to date, we anticipate that revenue and grants will be $73.7 million, which is 38.2% higher than that which was targeted. Recurrent revenue will be in the region of $663.6 million, or 42.9% above the estimate, and will comprise $334.9 million in tax revenue and another $328.7 million in non-tax revenue. We also expect that recurrent expenditure will be approximately $427 million, which is 4.3% in excess of what we budgeted for 2013. With recurrent revenue being higher than recurrent expenditure, a recurrent account surplus of $236.6 million is therefore being projected for fiscal year 2013. Fellas, hit that. I ain't that. Capital and budgetary grants are expected to amount to $68.1 million, surpassing the estimate by 4.5%. However, capital expenditure and net lending, which is projected to be about $63.1 million, will most likely be less than that which was budgeted by 11.6%. With projected total revenue and grants exceeding the projection for total expenditure of $490.1 million, it is anticipated that we will realize an overall surplus of $241.6 million and a primary surplus of $309.1 million. Let me look very quickly as I wind down to public debt and debt restructuring. When I spoke on the budget last, I noted that the total public sector debt for 2012 stood at $2.7 billion, $1 billion US. As a percentage of our most recent GDP estimates, that translates to 137% of GDP. Let us get it right. It is 137% of GDP. Today, Mr. Speaker, I can report with great pride that as of September 2013, the total public sector debt was $2.1 billion, or 103% of GDP. We started at 200% of GDP, you know. Remember that? It's now 103% of GDP. Debt gone. Mr. Speaker, as you can see, we are well on our way to meeting the ECCB's target of 60% by 2020, reduced. Good. And I assure you, Mr. Speaker, that we shall get there. The total debt stock at the end of September 2013 therefore declined by $0.6 million, or 21% from where it stood at the end of December 2012. This significant reduction in the debt stock was primarily the result of the debt for land swap that took place between the central government and the St. Kitts-Nevis and Anguilla National Bank at the beginning of July 2013. Consequently, the debt of the central government contracted by $0.5 million from $1.8 billion at the end of December 2012 to $1.3 billion at the end of September 2013. I think with Nevis now signing on to the land for debt swap, we will see a further reduction from 103% to about 87%. This is a major achievement for the government and the country as a whole. The restructuring exercise was long and challenging, but we are almost at the end of the road. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to briefly recap where we have come from and the journey that we have traveled. It was back in June 2011 when our debt was $2.9 billion, or 147% of GDP. We sought the support of our creditors in the restructuring of our debt. Then in February 2012, we launched our debt exchange offer to eligible creditors, putting forward the option to take a discount bond or a par bond. The debt exchange offer was closed in April 2012, and the new debt instruments were issued. The debt exchange resulted in a $130.9 million reduction in the debt. In May 2012, we met with our Paris Club creditors, following which the UK Department for International Development, DFID, cancelled our $9.7 million debt with them in full. And the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, for the Southeast Peninsula Road that they had financed, they consolidated and rescheduled our debt payments to more favorable terms. In October 2012, we in this Honorable House passed the St. Kitts-Nevis Anguilla National Bank Limited Vesting of Certain Lands Act, which facilitated the transfer of certain Crown lands to the National Bank. Subsequently, in July 2013, the debt for land swap was effected, resulting in a contraction of $0.6 million in the debt stock. Mr. Speaker, up to this point, because of the support of our creditors, we have achieved a reduction in our debt of $0.7 million. We express our sincere thanks and appreciation to our creditors for their understanding and for their cooperation. We could not have done it without them. They deserve applause. Okay. Mr. Speaker, we're getting there. Almost finished. Next few minutes, we're gone.
You have to be 3 hours and 22 minutes from last.
No, I'm not going to get there. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the section of the budget which speaks to the allocation of the funds to each ministry, I will skip that because I summarized it when I asked for the support of the resolution, and that gives opportunity for each minister to speak on his own portfolio and telling us how he's going to spend the money that the taxpayers have given to him to spend on their behalf. So I just want to make a few closing remarks, it would appear. One major initiative to be implemented in 2014 is the establishment of a St. Kitts and Nevis embassy in Cuba. I want to mention that because that comes under expenditure. This will indeed strengthen the already strong relationship that exists between our two governments and at the same time provide on-the-spot services to our nationals who are living and studying in Cuba. Mr. Speaker, in 2013, we made some administrative changes which resulted in the separation of the Office of the Attorney General from the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. This action was pursued to allow more focus to be placed on the constitutional and other responsibilities of the Attorney General. This initiative has allowed the Attorney General's chambers to devote much more attention and resources to the needs of government agencies and functionaries. During 2014, training of staff will continue to be of high priority, and the human resource capacity of the chambers will be augmented with the retention of 2 additional attorneys and clerical staff. This will give the chambers added capacity to respond to the ever-increasing request for legal advice and services. The office will also be modernized by computerizing many of its processes, including document storage and retrieval. Other initiatives to be implemented in the upcoming budget year include 1, the establishment of online research facilities and upgrade of the office library, and 2, the enhancement of staff and research capacity. These initiatives are expected to dramatically improve the efficiency of the Office of the Attorney General. Go back. Okay. I had mentioned it before. Mr. Speaker, when all is said and done, there's no denying that substantial resources have been provided to advance the work of all government ministries and departments. We believe that these resources will go a long way to deliver the quality of services the public is demanding. Furthermore, we are confident that the comprehensive programs and initiatives outlined in this year's budget estimates would help to build a platform for further growth and development of our federation, a better quality of life for our people, and more cohesive communities. I want to take the final few minutes, Mr. Speaker, and speak to the issues of fiscal and other strategic measures. Talk about tax, new tax. That's what I want to talk about now. Mr. Speaker, as indicated in my earlier review of fiscal performance, and as independently confirmed by the IMF and the central bank, our central bank, that is the Central Bank of the Eastern Caribbean, the combination of tax reform, expenditure containment efforts, and our debt restructuring program has resulted in the creation of some much needed fiscal space. The very strong performance of the Citizenship by Investment program has created some additional fiscal space. The debt restructuring agenda is proceeding, and we are now confident that with continued responsible fiscal management, we could bring the debt stock down to less than 80% of GDP by the end of 2016. We believe we can do that even while we meet our debt repayment obligations, which are expected to peak between 2014 and 2015. Indeed, as demonstrated by the comfortable margins by which we have exceeded the targets to which we are committed under the IMF program, our economic program is now somewhat ahead of the curve, and the economy as we are now is well poised to consolidate the recovery effort by focusing more firmly on the growth agenda. In this environment, Mr. Speaker, our major strategic challenge at this juncture is how to use the available fiscal space in a structured and coordinated manner in support of our own economic growth targets. In the preparations for this budget presentation, we have considered the options and accepted the following guiding principles. 1, expansion of expenditure must be moderate and measured. This principle applies particularly to recurrent expenditure, and as such, we plan to keep any growth in this area in line with the growth of tax revenues. 2, the second fiscal management principle that we propose to adopt is linked very closely to the first. And it is that the use of the surplus resources being generated by the Citizenship by Investment program will be heavily biased towards investment spending on programs and projects that are carefully designed to strengthen the country's productive capacity. You're not going to waste those funds into non-productive spending. The third principle, number 3, commits us to accelerating the implementation of a number of structural reforms that we have identified as being critical elements of the institutional infrastructure required to support sustainable growth and the enhancement of the economy's competitiveness. We have to revive the Competitiveness Council. And we also have to introduce very quickly, as has been given instructions to do already, the Productivity Council as well. And this agenda includes continuation of the Public Financial Management Improvement Program, business climate enhancement, pension reform, public sector modernization, and the re-engineering of our social services delivery system, as I pointed out we are doing. Over the medium term, we will review the system for administering tax concessions. And this will be done in the context of our efforts to improve competitiveness and enhance efficiency in terms of resource allocation among different areas of government's responsibility and strategic interest. And so in pursuit of this objective, the Ministry of Finance will collaborate with Skipper, with the Customs and Excise Department, and with the Inland Revenue Department to develop and implement a set of consistent methodologies for the measurement of foregone revenue, mechanisms to promote transparency and accountability of the system for administering concessions. It is claimed that there's too much concessions. Of course, we have to measure the economic impact of these concessions. The overall intention is to provide government and indeed the national community with clear information on the cost of tax concessions and the extent of their contribution to the objective of economic growth, foreign exchange generation, and employment creation as well. And this initiative will require some restructuring of the processes for the application, the approval, and monitoring of tax concessions. In parallel with these administrative improvements, we propose to undertake a complete review of the policy and regulatory framework with a view to embarking on a comprehensive approach to modernizing our incentive framework. It's difficult. Further, as part of our 2014 fiscal management strategy, the Ministry of Finance will play a coordinating and lead role in the implementation of the remaining items on the structural reform agenda. Continue to strengthen expenditure management systems as well as tax administration and compliance, and modernize systems supporting the preparation and implementation of the Public Sector Investment Program, the PSIP. The immediate target will be to prepare and publish the PSIP for the period 2015 to 2017. We need to see in front of us a comprehensive set of projects that will help to stimulate the economy and give us the growth that we're looking for. And we believe, Mr. Speaker, that this will provide the policy context and strategic priorities to inform the choice and the sequencing of investment priorities over the next 3 years. It will also provide the baseline information to support the monitoring of capital expenditure and the framework for the mobilization of external funding and technical support. Mr. Speaker, let me now outline the measures that we propose to take in support of efforts to strengthen the management of public finances. After all, we have to get money from somewhere. We have to do certain things. We have to introduce certain measures. And so in order to ensure the maintenance of accurate debt records and the timely payment of debt service charges, the Accountant General Department will start using the latest version of the Commonwealth Secretariat Debt Recording and Management Systems, the CSDMS version 2, during 2014. And the enhanced features include the ability to record both lending and debt instruments in the same database, the production of an extended list of reports forecasting dates for debt instruments that can factor in non-business days, allowing for adjustments to interest forecast where necessary, and data export facility for World Bank Public Sector Debt Statistics Database. And this department will also undertake a comprehensive upgrade and enhancement of the integrated treasury management systems. A number of improvements are planned to enhance the financial management system used by the various line ministries and departments. And some of the improvements include report writing facilities, enhanced system and data security, development of a cash management and fiscal reporting module, upgrading the payroll and HR module, enhancement of the accounting and reporting module, and upgrading the purchasing module in ITMS. Taken as a whole, it is expected that implementation of these activities will result in a more efficient and reliable public financial management system, which is what we want to attain. Mr. Speaker, my government is focused on building a thriving private sector with new firms entering the market, the creation of jobs, and developing innovative products that can contribute to a more prosperous society and sustainable green economy. As such, my government embraces its role in supporting a dynamic ecosystem for firms by setting the rules that establish and clarify property rights, reducing the cost of doing business, and increasing the predictability of economic transactions. And so in this regard, we will be focusing on working with the private sector more closely towards enhancing our tax administration environment by building the cash flows of the private sector to drive investment that we need in our country. We will build these cash flows by extending the time for the payment of selected taxes. Mr. Speaker, my government understands the opportunity cost of time. So preparing, filing, and paying the firm's annual taxes could take up many hours of a business staff's time. We are therefore proposing that, commencing first in January morning 2014, we will change the payment period for the excise tax, hotel room and restaurant tax, insurance premium tax, island enhancement fund, travel tax, and unincorporated business tax from being paid on a monthly basis to a quarterly basis. You have some money to spend, but bring it when we ask for it at a quarterly basis. Mr. Speaker, the World Bank's Doing Business report stated that the average business in St. Kitts-Nevis has to sometimes file in excess of 36 payments or filings in a year to Inland Revenue Department. This is a large number of submissions, and it continues to put St. Kitts-Nevis at a disadvantage relative to the other countries here in the region and around the world. Remember, we are now a global country. These changes will enable businesses to save time and money, as their staff will now be able to focus on other productive activities. It is very important that as policymakers, we continue to do all we can to improve the economic environment for doing business here in our federation. For example, we must ensure that we reduce the time it takes to start a business, standardize rules and procedures, simplify and consolidate our tax laws, reduce the cost of compliance, and employ the use of cross-functional teams among all departments and agencies in government to maximize the gains of operational outputs of our people and scarce resources. On a casual observation, Mr. Speaker, these changes might appear small, even insignificant to the unsuspecting observer, but I want to make the point that they are critically important in helping to strengthen and enhance the efficiency of our regulatory framework, primarily by improving the business environment here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We are a country on the move. We have to do it right. We have to do it efficiently. Mr. Speaker, this additional time and cash flow resources should be used wisely by our private sector partners, wisely to build innovative products to enhance their own competitive position in the marketplace. And so I hasten to add that we will be carefully monitoring the implementation of this initiative to ensure that these extended payment periods are not abused or used by anyone to evade the payment of the respective taxes when they are asked so to do at the particular time. More importantly, we will be extending existing legislation to guard against persons who may collect these taxes on behalf of the government and not pay them over to the Inland Revenue Department. They have to go to jail. The full details of these legislative changes will be provided at a later date. But we want to make sure that if you collect government money, hand it over. I know that they're not doing it, but I'm warning them. The Ministry of Finance and the Inland Revenue Department's choice of the correct organization structure, it is a key component in our strategy for improving revenue generation through enhancing the administrative effectiveness of the administration of our taxes. International best practice in tax administration suggests that it is necessary to have the right organization structure in place in order for revenue administrations to operate effectively and to optimize their revenue collection and compliance efforts. At the Inland Revenue Department, for example, we are well advanced in adopting a structure based on what is called a functional-based model. And this will enable the management of that department to establish a full-service audit and collection enforcement section dedicated to providing service to our large and medium taxpayers. This structure is in line with international best practice and is based on the theory that in grouping together similar activities that require similar skills or specialties, real performance gains are achieved through an increased depth of knowledge in core areas of business expertise. Mr. Speaker, while we are not in a position at this very early stage of the Inland Revenue Department reform and modernization process to categorically state or quantify what is likely to be the revenue impact or return on investment during the initial period, there is no doubt. There is no doubt that it will be credible, substantial, and it will be real. Reforms and transformational change, such as we are embarking upon, will take time. It will take patience. It will take foresight. But we are committed, and we have seen the early gains as we are confident with perseverance, our ultimate goals will be realized. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to add that one of our goals towards building a sustainable green economy is the application of technology to the Inland Revenue Department's operations. In my last budget address to this august body, I mandated that the IRD must move into the era of e-business. Businesses can now pay almost all of their taxes online. I must add that we are the first country in the OECS sub-region to achieve this particular milestone. St. Kitts-Nevis will always lead. And among the first countries in the CARICOM, we are also leading, Mr. Speaker. This innovation by my government is translating into positive benefits for our private sector in terms of extending opening hours, as businesses that register for e-filing now have until 11:59 p.m. to pay their taxes without penalties, and businesses pay their taxes at their convenience, as they can choose to no longer spend time queuing in lines at the department. In 2014, the Inland Revenue Department, the IRD, will be adding property taxes to its online e-business platform. Mr. Speaker, we are a government that listens to our people. And we are a government that seizes all practical opportunities to partner with the private sector and, of course, civil society. I have mandated the Minister of Finance to evaluate the proposal for repeating for a third time the implementation of a reduced VAT day in 2013. As you're aware, we have publicly communicated the rather generous decision to again sponsor 2 days of reduced VAT. Where else in the Caribbean is that happening? Nowhere else. The days indicated were the 5th of December, and, of course, the 20th of December 2013. 20th. Listen to me, please. 20th. 20th.
Friday. 20th.
We have changed it from Thursday to Friday. So I'm announcing now that it is Friday, the 20th. We believe that on Thursday we would have excluded a lot of people who could not have made it on the Thursday. And we are a people who respond to requests to include everybody. People in the industrial estate, for example, they would not have been able to participate. Hundreds of young ladies, and we know that they like to spend. They would have been deprived of the opportunity. And so yesterday, my cabinet, we considered this. And we asked David Lake, the president of the chamber, if he will agree to it, and he says yes. Thank you. Today, I also want to say that we did not have the VAT reduction on vehicles for the first day, but it will be for the second day. And it is going to be 5%, not 7%, 5%. Today, I am taking this decision to really thank our people for cooperating with us. You know why? I just indicated that the tax revenue is much less than we are anticipating. Nevertheless, we look at how the reduction in the VAT can stimulate the economy, how it can stimulate consumption. And even though the government may lose something, let the people have it for their Christmas. I would also like to invite the businesses that stand to benefit from increased volumes of sales to join the government and sweeten the deal for their consumers by offering additional discounts equal to or above the rates offered by the government. We wish the business community a very successful and profitable 2013, and we look forward to a vibrant year of business in 2014. We are partners. I mentioned earlier that we have created some fiscal space, and last year we took the opportunity to bring some relief to the private sector by reducing the rate of corporate income tax to 33%. This year, we are taking some time out to look closely at the public sector. You're aware that over the last few years, there have been a lot of sacrifices made in the public sector, particularly among our civil servants who bonded with the government in order for us to pursue our fiscal consolidation agenda. Mr. Speaker, I am referring to the courageous and bold partnership that we formed as employee and employer to make a success story of our expenditure control measures. I am sure you can remember growing up that all people used to say that ungratefulness is worse than witchcraft. Well, you know what I say about that. This government will never practice ungratefulness. Never. And that is why we were able to negotiate and secure the necessary resources to pay a bonus in celebration of our 30th anniversary of independence. This was just the beginning of the package. The beginning of the package designed to bring relief and express gratitude to our hard-working civil servants. And so I want to say that as early as January of this year, we signaled to the IMF a desire to use some of the fiscal space created from the sacrifice of civil servants to reward their diligence and hard work. Starting in January 2014, notice the clerk is looking at me intently. Starting in January 2014, we will discontinue the wage freeze and we will restore increments so that all civil servants who are eligible for incremental payments can look forward to receiving this well-earned payment. Mr. Speaker, we are also committed to providing an upgrade in the pay package for civil servants. In addition to restoring increments, we will increase wages and salaries by 10% over the next 3 years. Over the next few years, starting in 2014, with an immediate increase of 4% to be followed by 3% increases in 2015 and 2016. Similar adjustments will be made to the pension payments of retired civil servants. In making this announcement, I wish to signal the government's intention to adopt a new approach to the critical question of public sector wage determination as we move forward. And this approach will involve a formal review of the public sector wage bill every 3 years, as opposed to the past practice of allowing fairly long periods to pass by without adjusting the compensation packages. The major weakness of this old approach was that it attempted to correct the erosion of public sector wages after the fact. But the new policy proposes a more proactive approach to protecting the real wages of our public servants. Don't wait until it's eroded to replace it. No, it's not good. So, Mr. Speaker, please permit me to share a few words with the national community on the rationale for adopting this approach. The objective of our employee compensation policy is to support continuous enhancements to the productivity of the public sector while protecting the real wages of the individual worker. Of course, as in all other areas of public expenditure, affordability is a major consideration since employee compensation is the largest single expense undertaken by the government, accounting for, on average, an estimated 43% of expenditure. In short, public sector wage policy must strike at an appropriate balance between productivity and the welfare of the individual worker while keeping the growth of the public expenditure within affordable limits. And so, in striking this balance, we also have to ensure that the public sector continues to attract and retain the level of talent and commitment that is required to deliver on the increasingly complex development agenda that we have embarked upon. This is the context in which we now propose to adopt an approach of reviewing and adjusting the public sector compensation package every 3 years, as obtained in other countries in the region. And so a major consideration in adopting this new direction is the need to put the determination of public sector compensation packages on a more predictable footing. This will have benefits for both the individual public sector employee and the government, as both parties would have the advance information required for them to arrange their respective affairs in a more orderly fashion. Finally, I also want to signal that within the framework of our public sector reform initiative, we propose to move towards a system that allows the establishment of more transparent linkages between productivity and payment of increments. Has to be done. Has to be done. Can't be just simply automatic. This will require restructuring of our performance appraisal systems and procedures, a task that will have to be undertaken as part of our public sector reform program. And I am confident that both the national economy, the national community, and the public sector workforce will welcome this attempt to improve the efficiency of the public spending in this critical area. Once again, I want to thank the public sector workforce for the sacrifice and for the commitment to the national cause, as they have demonstrated over the last 3 years. They deserve standing ovation. In summarizing and in concluding, Mr. Speaker, and judging from the record of our sterling successes and progress, the practical yet impressive plans put forward for 2014 and the passion and the energy being applied to the implementation of real solutions to the challenges of our country, you must agree that it is springtime here in St. Kitts-Nevis. It is springtime in St. Kitts-Nevis. Yes, we are ushering in a new season of rejuvenation and visioning for our future prosperity. My government and the country as a whole have definitely made some important strides over the last year. And so I want to borrow the words of our consultant specialist in internal medicine, Dr. Terence Drew of St. Peter's, of constituency number 8, it is springtime here in St. Kitts-Nevis. Mr. Speaker, in considering the current fiscal position of the government and the forecast for 2014, we have determined that there will be no major changes in the tax regime. I want to make it clear to this Honorable House and to the nation that this is a tax-free budget. Yes. David, tax-free budget. Yet another tax-free budget. And the broad macroeconomic policies that my government adopted back in 2013 are working and therefore will, for the most part, remain unchanged during fiscal year 2014. It is anticipated that corporate income tax will recover and grow in line with GDP. International trade taxes will grow as imports increase. And the Citizenship by Investment program will continue to grow from strength to strength, especially keeping a very close eye on it. Our homegrown approach to dealing with our own debt situation has received international recognition. And we have received much commendation on the creative approaches we have designed and the policies we have implemented toward addressing our debt service obligations. In fact, as you are aware, as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of this Federation, I recently led a Commonwealth delegation of small island states to meet with the international financial institutions, including the IMF, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank. And the purpose of those discussions was to examine how the debt situation of the Commonwealth small states can be managed in a way that would bring immediate relief and over the long term lead to debt stabilization in these small, vulnerable states. Overall, I am pleased that St. Kitts-Nevis was able to share its experiences with the rest of the world, and the fact that this initiative holds great promise to yield tangible outcomes for all Commonwealth states, including our own federation. Mr. Speaker, it was Theodore Roosevelt, President of the United States of America, who said, and I quote, "It is not what we have that will make us a great nation. It is the way in which we use it, Mr. Speaker." End of quote. This government is charting a course that will facilitate the achievement of greatness for St. Kitts-Nevis, ensuring sustained development and the reduction of poverty through the strategic utilization of our natural assets to create a sustainable island state. We have shown commitment in this regard through the development and the approval of the National Energy Policy 2011, the installation of over 100 induction lights along the Kim Collins Highway and a portion of the Frigate Bay Road, the use of solar lighting on the main road from Sandy Point to St. Paul's, and the RLB Bradshaw Memorial Park, and the use of solar panels to generate a proportion of the power used by our very own government headquarters and most recently the RLB International Airport. We are pleased that our concession and our duty-free packages have provided the impetus for integration of renewable and energy-efficient technologies by our people in their very homes and in their businesses. However, the greening of the economy includes more than ensuring energy efficiency. It also involves the fostering of eco-innovation across all sectors, bringing business and innovation together to create sustainable solutions that make more efficient use of our precious resources that we have. Embracing the concept of a green economy can help to reduce the negative side effects of our economy on the environment while creating economic benefits and, of course, competitive advantage. And this will be the thrust. This will be the thrust of our development as we endeavor to remain one step ahead in an uncertain global economy which requires sustained collective action, not only here in St. Kitts-Nevis, but across the entire Caribbean region. We are convinced that the transformation of St. Kitts-Nevis into a sustainable island state would help to protect us from the massive fluctuations in the global economy by reducing our imports, making our import bill smaller and moving our economy towards greater efficiency in energy, for electricity, and for food production. Mr. Speaker, the overarching objective of my government is to improve the quality of life of our people. And the main vehicle to achieving this goal is sustained growth and development here in our country. In this budget, we have therefore been careful. We have been very careful to commit resources to key areas that would drive growth, including tourism, agriculture, small and medium enterprise development, and the infrastructural development as well. And despite the fiscal challenges, despite these challenges that we face, we have ensured that the programs and initiatives critical to improving the quality of life of our people have been adequately resourced. Every single head increase. We will therefore continue to reform our education system, make education more relevant to the needs of our young people, and equip them with the skills and the expertise that are in demand in the private sector. The objective is also to position them to be able to compete locally, regionally, and internationally. The order of the day from now on is TVET education. The availability of scholarships to persons wishing to attend university has also increased. In this budget, our focus on poverty reduction and social protection, it will continue. A new national social protection strategy will be implemented along with the introduction of the new unemployment benefit scheme. Further, substantial resources have been provided to our security forces to continue their safety and their security initiatives to further reduce crime, building on the success that they have achieved so far in significantly reducing crime. For this year, 46.6% reduction. We will continue to upgrade our health system to provide our citizens with modern diagnostic equipment and tertiary-level healthcare services such as hemodialysis. This budget addresses the issue of the inability of many of our citizens to afford the cost of health care, especially in the case of catastrophic illnesses. Therefore, provisions have been made in this budget, the budget for 2014, to implement the first phase of a universal health care scheme for the benefit of our people. This phase will provide health care coverage for the uninsured, beginning with the more vulnerable groups in our society. As I indicated at this year's national consultation on the economy, my government believes that it is important for all stakeholders, public, economic, and social, to share in the process of consensus building on critical issues that pertain to our development. Therefore, we will create opportunities to continue that dialogue on the vision of a green economy and the transformation of St. Kitts and Nevis to a sustainable island state throughout 2014. It is also worth repeating my belief that, as with our debt management strategies when it comes to the pursuit of a green economy, as a nation, we can push hard and we can arrive ahead of the pack because we are leaders in the Caribbean region. We are already on a good track, and we should remain focused on becoming the greenest and the most energy-efficient economy in the entire Caribbean region. Mr. Speaker, I speak with confidence because we are confident that the comprehensive programs and initiatives that have been outlined in this year's budget estimates will help to build a platform for further growth and development of our federation, a better quality of life for our people, and more inclusive communities. This budget, it is designed to win. Designed to win big. Designed to win big. This budget, designed to win big. Big for our people in 2014. And it is a testament to my government's unwavering commitment to continue to win big. To win big for every man, woman, and child who call this, our beloved federation, their home. God bless you. Thank you. So I speak, Mrs.